Welcome to the Monday Club in association with Find Insurance NI, your local commercial insurance broker. Neil Loughran here. I'm joined this week, as always, by Cahair O'Kane and by Stefan Campbell. Fair bit going on, lads. Fair to say, we're just back in here. The draw has not long been made. I'll quickly run through it before we get into what is the blockbuster tie, but you'll not need me to point out what it is. But anyway, the All-Ireland round 3 draw this morning: Monaghan Westmeath, Dublin Donegal, Kerry and Armagh and Mayo against Meath. Tailteann Cup semi-finals, which will be played in Croke Park on Saturday. Offaly, Wicklow and Down against Fermanagh. But yeah, what do you reckon? This is it was written in the stars, Soupy. I think that it was going to be Kerry and Armagh, which just makes yesterday, the way yesterday went, like, that's a serious kick in the stones.
Yeah, you're kicking the ball away from maybe getting the week off and
not having to go to Kerry.
Not having to go to Kerry, who me or Armagh. No, look, there were seconds from getting the week off and going straight in the quarter final and maybe getting a few bodies back. And now it's called what it is, the worst possible draw. Probably the draw all Armagh fans were fearing. But I think maybe if there's a silver line in there anywhere, is it if there's a good time to get them. They're still down a few bodies. You know, we know what Donegal done to them a couple of weeks ago when I was down, albeit with a man less. You know, I know Paddy looked a bit sharper. Joe Connor pushed up in the half forward line, Mark O'Shea back in. You know, they're getting Brian O'Begley was playing from the start and Gavin White got minutes, so they're obviously going to be much stronger. But I think if they're going to get them, now's maybe the time, as opposed to maybe 2 or 3 weeks maybe later. But without being said, it's a huge task.
Yeah, and Cahair, you're giving me a funny face here.
I'm giving you a funny face because I'm just remembering that post match yesterday. You're about to ask about the week ahead, and post match yesterday, I probably asked Kieran McGeeney the stupidest question anybody's ever asked Kieran McGeeney.
Is this because I was about to ask the stupidest question?
Well, I was trying to save you a wee bit there.
Okay, go ahead.
But
what did you ask?
It started off okay, and then it went to shit. Oh. It was basically like sort of how do you deal with this week now? What do you do with the players? You know, how do you deal with lifting them and dealing with only having 6 or 7 days recovery? But I elaborated too much, and I went to, do you sore on them in the video, or do you run the shite out of them? And he just looked at me, he's like nobody runs shit out of teams anymore. And I was like, straight away, like 6 days from a championship match, what was I even thinking? Like, so completely.
So why you haven't released any of the footage yet? Like, I'm looking for post-match.
The files are being kept.
the geezer files.
Yeah. But Cahair, like again, we've been in here singing the praises of the championship format, and this is exactly why, you know, there's going to be unbelievable crowd heading down to Killarney. And you know, it's a horrendous draw for Armagh, I suppose, in some ways, but also like this, what an opportunity. Like this rivalry, the last couple of years we've seen it. Like, you know, for everybody else, it's class. Like, you know, you're immediately just totally invested,
isn't it? You know, like we were sitting yesterday, and you just think there's very little bad football anymore. You know, like when you get a bit of decent weather, and obviously we didn't see Donegal Cork, and there are obviously exceptions, but by and large, you can now go to a game knowing that you're going to get some form of entertainment. And the football championship is outstripping the hurling championship. It is outstripping the World Cup right now. Like, it's, you know, for a weekend's value that we just had, and even if the Donegal Cork game wasn't deadly to look at, we still got the shock out of it. Yeah. So you're getting that element, and it's just the combination of the format of it, which is decent. The obviously the rule changes. We're getting a wee spell of weather, like it's to be good again this weekend. It is just, the football is brilliant to watch at the minute. Like, I took a busman's holiday to Celtic Park on Saturday evening, stood in the terrace, and really enjoyed that game as a spectacle. And then Louth Inniskeen yesterday was unbelievable value for 70 minutes. But look, Killarney, Armagh, Kerry, it is. I think it's something that the championship badly missed in its previous formats. And we went back to the qualifiers, and the problem with the qualifiers were that so few heavy hitters ever met each other in the qualifiers. So you had either, say games between sides who were going to then get knocked out in round 2 anyway, or round 3 anyway, and then the stronger teams were away to quarterfinals. So you kind of had that segregation, and this feels like the first time. Maybe even the group stage, because there was a group stage element to it, didn't have the same knockout factor. This is. Can you think of a bigger championship game pre the All Ireland quarterfinals since the qualifiers were introduced? Because there'd been a bigger one.
Trying to think.
It's very tough to think of one.
And even just the way
Mayo Kerry won something, but even then I can't. I'm not sure. Yeah.
The way the draws fell too for like Monaghan, for all the bad luck that they've had, and Westmeath.
Monaghan and Westmeath both be delighted with that. Like
both got the draw they wanted, so it's opened up for them, and then obviously the Galways, the Louths,
when you
the
look at
Trones waiting in the
quarterfinal
are absolutely delighted. The way the Dubs or Donegal are gone, Kerry or Armagh are gone, and it's just opened it up completely. And look,
but is it opening it up for the winners of Saturday and Donegal? Is it open in some ways? Is it clear in a road? Because I remember us having these kind of conversations this time last year, and everybody before the All Ireland quarterfinals, how open the All Ireland series looked, and then it became very apparent that it's just going to be Donegal Kerry final, isn't it?
But then look at the form lines. Like Donegal have lost 2 games, so in that regard, you'd say it's opened up. Kerry, albeit by Donegal, were dismantled twice, and then obviously Armagh, were beat yesterday for the first time in championship this year. Was it 1-5 in a row, wasn't it? So you could argue the point. Look, it could be still a 3-way shootout.
Everybody has lost.
Yeah. Everyone's lost a game. So the form lines would suggest that it is open. But then look, in 6 weeks' time, when we're approaching the All Ireland final, it could be 2 of the 3 big hitters that we've probably all fancied for the last couple of months.
And one of the great things, and I know I've spoke about it, but I have said, and I still do have a wee worry that I'm just not sure that Croke Park lends itself to the new rules just as well as the provincial venues do, because it plays.
As we saw that last year.
As we saw last year, once it went to Croke Park, that's when the steam went out of the championship last year, and it would just that concern lingers for this year again until we see how it pans out. But this being in Killarney, I think, I'd rather this game nearly in Killarney than in Croke Park.
Absolutely.
I think it adds to the game. Maybe not for Armagh. They don't particularly want to have to go to Killarney and win, but for everybody else in the country, the 40,000 that'll be there and the 300 that'll see it in GA Plus.
He should be on GA Plus, you mean. I see just on it, I'll ask you both about this in that respect, because the Killarney thing, you've talked about it, and we almost talk with this reverence about, going into Killarney and, Kerry never get beat. They were hammered there. What was it, 3 weeks ago? And you wonder, Cahair, what impact that has, I suppose, on the feeling, the psychology around this game for Armagh, going there now, looking at that, going, well, what's to fear?
I think now, in fairness, that probably busted open a wee bit when Mayo went down there a couple of years ago and won well. That because they hadn't lost since '95, I think, in Killarney up until that day, and that was, every time then they went there, that was talked about, and they haven't lost here in so long and so long and so long, and then Mayo did it, and it's like that's it over, and then now Donegal have done it again. So for me, that psychological side of their good record, it's a wee bit like we talked here last week, funny, about Donegal and Ballybofey. They've now lost their last 2 home championship games in Ballybofey and 1 in Letterkenny. And it's very quickly now, had they been in Ballybofey against Kerry or against an Armagh, well, they couldn't get Armagh, but against a stronger side in Ballybofey, that's kind of stripped back a wee bit. I think for Armagh, I think that'll be the least of their concerns. I think they'll actually play now into that a wee bit, that the lustre of this place doesn't exist in the same way. There's no, it's not 31 years since anybody came here and won. It's 3 weeks. So that's a big thing for Armagh.
You were down at that one. So be like, what did you like? Watching it on TV looked like a bear pit, but I don't know what was it like.
I really enjoyed it. We could sense not that it worked out in the end, but we could sense that there was a classic brewing, even just from the streets. We done a wee bit in the street on the way in, and like even up until half time, you could feel it. Like the Donegal support was unreal. The numbers that they travelled in, but up until obviously Sean came out at half time and brought us the red card, it felt like it was going to be a classic, and it was almost a privilege to be there to witness it. And then obviously it went to it was a non-event. It was a non-event in the second half. Look, I thought with the win the Kerry were handling in that first half. 9 points was a good return. I think they went in 5 down, and look, we were just, if there's one team in the country that you don't want to play against with 14 men, it's Donegal. And they were so like it was the first time watching it, like as obviously as a retired player, just how they were able to manipulate that Kerry, such an experienced Kerry team that like if you watch most club teams or even some of the teams maybe down in divisions, they always want to play with the extra man, but Donegal were like enticing Kerry in, to make them tackles. And then there was
piggy in the middle of football.
That's what they were doing. They were just trying to suck them out of the pockets that they were trying to hold, and then it was last ditch getting it out wide, and it was Kerry will have learned a lot from that. But look, there was that day. It was, I thought, as I say, it was brewing into going to be an unbelievable spectacle, maybe one for the ages, and let's hope, from an Armagh's perspective, this Saturday, Sunday evening, wherever it's going to be, that we maybe go back to that, and there is going to be maybe a game here that we're going to remember for a long, long time, because with the rivalry, like obviously the semi-final 24, the quarter-final 25, Star going back, there's that familiarity there now, and it's probably the worst possible draw on paper, but the fact that there's Kieran has so familiar with every player, every setup. I do think Armagh have evolved from that. It's a tricky one for Armagh to try and maybe manoeuvre or handle, just because of that familiarity at the other side of the pitch and Star. Like.
Yeah. Can you take us inside the rivalry? Because I thought it was interesting actually down at the league game, which was the final Division 1 game, and brilliant. Like Armagh fought back and got a draw, but even watching Donaghy in the in the changing room area in the tunnel afterwards, like he's on such good terms with all the Donegal, or with all the not the Donegal players, with all the Armagh players, and you could see that, But as you said, Armagh have probably evolved even since he's gone. So how much he can read into that, but like in terms of the way, because the 2024 semi-final, last year's quarter-final, like. And even that league game I mentioned, it was neatly enough. Like, what's the rivalry like there?
It's spicy enough. Like, obviously, the sense down in Kerry, what we got was after that semi-final, there was zero respect. They thought they should have been out of sight. The Tom O'Sullivan chance was the big one. They maybe put them, maybe set them right up that day. And obviously we go back into through Barry's goal, lucky enough goal, but. We went down to, I think it was Tralee, for the league game in 25, and Star did warn us that they were coming for us. All Ireland champions coming down.
The jungle drums.
Yeah, and to be honest, the Kerry bullied us that day. Clifford made a kick 10 points, but you could, from the throw in, there was shoves, there was verbals. Paddy was giving the usual, he was being narky and just leaving everything in, verbals every time a score went over, and you just got the sense that.
Who are the main protagonists on, you mentioned Paddy there, but who are the main protagonists on the Kerry side in terms of setting the tone for how they come into a game like that?
I mean, there's not a lot of them that are overly vocal. Like Foley, Tadhg Morley, quite physical. Would love a bit of it, contact. Paddy's probably the one there where
in your ear.
He's in your ear constantly. And he's fit to dish it out too. So they were the three that would maybe, but then you've got the likes of Joe O'Connor, who's not to be messed with either, and You know,
He's a big kid.
It's an understatement.
do you know what I mean? So I actually, we were talking about the Beath earlier. I met him in the Beath last year, like while he was celebrating.
Oh, right.
Well,
Yeah, we met him. We met him in Ocean Beach. Good lad. Good crack.
Yeah.
Loves the pints too. But he's
Much
another
football
one.
talk, was there? No.
No, very little. No, he's tell you what, he's more stamina than me because he was looking me out that night and I didn't make it. He's still going. But I think he was on.
That's another tick in his box. This is all-star material now.
We've kept in touch since, so we'll have. But no, he's an absolute unit, a machine.
he seems to love the physical stuff too. He actually loves it, like relishes it.
Yeah.
But he's a rugby background, hasn't he? So he likes the contact. He uses his power to get that space. But look, as I say, there's Foley, there's Morley, maybe up their spine. You know, obviously Joe O'Connor, and if you lay a hand on David, you know, Poddy's running about. You know, he's never too far away. But no, that day, Storr had us warned that they were going to come with serious aggression. But it was All Ireland champions coming to Kerry. They wouldn't like it, and I think I was near coming in after 15 or 20 minutes that day.
Right.
It was that bad at the start.
They had a massive start. That's right.
Massive start. I think it was a mistake. Maybe David got an early goal. Maybe Dungini or whoever it was from a mistake off the tee. So they'll be coming for a fast start again. And obviously, I'm sure Geezer will be echoing the words that Storr, reminded us of, because there has been that bit of rivalry built up. So he would have went to the semi-final, and then in 24 he would have had that league game, which was heavy hitting, and then obviously he had the quarter-final last year, and then obviously the drawn game this year. And again, similarly enough to the semi-final, Kerry would believe, you would like to think they were the much better team. They were 10 points up, 10-0 before Armagh got a score.
20 minutes, yeah.
Obviously Shane Ryan's not back yet, which is probably a plus. But I think Armagh will. There'll be worry, but I think they can go in with, once they get yesterday out of the system and they're back in the field tomorrow night, they'll review the game and look.
Not run the shade out of them.
No, he'll not be running this week. Definitely not. If GA Plus get their way, it's probably going to be a Saturday evening. So you've.
We're preempting, sorry, we should just tell. We're preempting that a wee bit. The fixtures are probably out Monday afternoon, maybe even by the time you see this or hear this.
They might already know.
But we're talking Monday morning, so
we're speculating
Saturday afternoon. But
so I mean, they're going to travel down on Friday too, so that's your 5-day turnaround. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, they can be worried, but I think they can go in with a bit of confidence, just because they were beat by a good live team. Live were fortunate enough to beat them in the end. The Armagh had the chances. Even when the Connolly goal chance, we tried to soccer it. I was just thinking, I hope this doesn't come back to bite us here. And it was just a manic ending to quite a manic game. But I think when all said and done, they get out of their system, they review it. They've lost one championship game 6. They were beat by a good team, and they can be confident going into the weekend, knowing that Kerry maybe haven't hit the heights. Their main players, although they've got minutes, will they be up to the pitch fit? They got a fortunate enough draw in Kildare. Similar enough to last year, when Meath had beat them, and then they got Cavan the following week. They just allowed them to build and get the minutes. This time around, they're going to be up a formidable side, and in Armagh, they're not a bad side just because they've lost by a goal in the last kick yesterday. So
there's a lot of similarities in that sense in terms of how the way that
they're
coming into this one.
There is. It's going to be a very tough one to call. Like if the Armagh had played Kerry the weekend past, Armagh probably would have been favourites, given the amount of bodies that maybe Kerry have had missing, as discussed. But that was also the same case as last year as well. Do you know what I mean, going in that game? So it's an intriguing one. I
just wonder, you were talking about the needle and things, and where the line is on that going out on Saturday, because we saw never mind the half time stuff in the Donegal game, but the throw-in. There was a lot of, and that was a follow on from Kerry, the Kerry players all meeting Donegal like that in the All Ireland
Yeah.
final last year. They came out and of everybody almost had a shoulder, and Donegal were kind of rocked back a wee bit. And then Donegal did that in Ballyshannon to Kerry a wee bit in the league, and then it was like, right, well, both teams now banged off each other when
Yeah.
it went to Killarney, and it created a bit of carnage. But it's just the fact that what happened at halftime happened, and then what happened at halftime in Derrymeath happened, and Sean Herson took a very different line and dished out 4 black yards. And it's like, who's refereeing this? There's a good chance Sean Herson. There's a good chance. You're looking at Sean Herson, Brenton Colley, David Goff, Martin McNally. Possibly.
I think they'll send Falloon down and
Possibly
just
Paul
throw the ball
Falloon.
up and he'll
Possibly
stand for the match.
that would be
That would be
magic.
good.
Jeez, I'd love to see Paul Falloon refereeing that. Absolutely, because then you can wrestle away
Yeah.
all you want. That'd be great value for neutrals. But I just wonder, where the line is, or how far. You don't want them to take it further than you and get away with it.
Yeah.
But equally, you don't want to take it too far and then get punished for it.
We actually spoke about it before the throw in. We knew you could just get a sense for the whole day, and like as soon as Michael, even after the throw in, after the couple of skirmishes, every Kerry player was walking past Michael Murphy and leaving something on him, just looking at reaction. And every Donegal player was doing the exact same thing at Liam Clifford. But yet, when the opposite, it was funny. It was like I seen somebody tweeting. It was like it would remind you of Simeone's Atletico Madrid, the branching the cords, and all. That's what both teams were at.
Yeah.
Every time there was a tackle, they were running towards the ref to try and get either of them sent off. But hopefully, it doesn't start like that on whenever the game is. But look, it's set up. It's set up for a classic.
Because Armagh can't get drawn. I know. I think that's what you mean, Cahair. Like, because you can't.
Well, we saw the impact of Micheál Burns then going off, where you
Yeah.
know when you cross the line,
Yeah.
it can be so catastrophic for you that you can't afford to do it.
And the thing is, like, obviously, was it me didn't capitalise the game after that evening because we covered it as well. But you can be sure that every other county team left in this
Meath were
championship
brutal.
have worked on that and have actually actively played, them game scenarios, maybe even if it's only for 10 or 12 minutes per night, they'll have went down to 14, 15 because we've seen a really good example from Donegal, but we also seen from Meath how not to play before with a man up. I think there was a 9-point turnaround in that Cork game. So you can be sure the next time it does happen, the gap in, I'm not going to say quality, but there may not be as much in
It's
it.
as much how to play with the 14 as it is to play with
yeah,
the 15.
yeah.
Because Donegal gave the perfect example of playing with the 15. But Kerry
But no one,
probably didn't do enough.
Yeah.
What do you do?
But then Kerry were like, they couldn't even attack because
They're
we
man like that.
assume that
Yeah.
just because you're a man up that it's going to fear being attacked. But what they were doing was so Donegal in their structure in the first half they were almost giving Kerry the wings to recycle, but in the second half they were opening up their bodies, allowing the likes of Clifford and Dylan Geeney to go down the line, and then they were trapping them at +1, and it was really hard for them to get out because if you go back, Kerry had a load of frees on the sideline and they were just coming from the traps as well, and when teams are dominating with the +1 on the attack, it's frustrating the life out of David and Dylan Geeney and these boys. Obviously Paul Geeney's back now, and then when they do get the ball, they haven't touched the ball in 2, 3, 4 minutes, maybe sometimes longer, and then because the scoreboards now went from 6 points to 10 points, it's 2-point territory, and then they're forcing that and they're dropping it short, and then it go again. And I don't expect if that game is replayed or if Kerry do go down to 14 again, I don't expect Armagh to run away with it.
But is it
10 or 12 points.
Is it as much as to how they defended with the 14 in terms of they just kept on trying to do the same thing and Donegal just played around them? And does there come a point where, and I know this might sound like the dumbest thing in the world to people, but does there come a point where you just say, we have to press out, we collapse in front of our own goal, make sure it's not a goal they score, but if we concede the point, that's better than them keeping the ball for 3 minutes.
100%.
We have to get the ball back, so we're nearly better just almost letting them score.
Yeah, and it's the clock is almost just with the hooter and all now, it's almost your best friend now. So I mean, if Donegal are go to keep that ball and they're going to be looking at the clock, they're going to be chatting to the referee, long's left, many minutes left, they're going to be going after maybe 3 minute attacks instead of a minute and a half, maybe 90 seconds. So yeah, it's a fair point. I think I don't know. The deeper we get in the championship, I actually thought we would have seen it more, maybe in the new format. So what he means is, our defence is going to open up and maybe almost let them into 1 point territory without the risk of a goal, and it's giving you a chance to get the ball back, with more time on the clock for you to maybe that night Kerry had the elements in the second half. So I mean, I know you're only closing the gap by 1,
but you could go up
but
and
you're
kick
closing.
2.
Yeah. But you can kick the 2, and then you can get the restart off that, and then that.
Yeah,
that
was it. They could never force Donegal into a kick-out situation. They couldn't get. You just didn't have the ball to do anything, and you just need it.
Yeah. Look, we spoke about it even going back to when I was with the county 20s. Sometimes you're with the clock running down, even in the friendly games, you could be 3 points down with 4 minutes left on the clock, and sometimes it's just, we spoke about it, like let them in for a 1, get the ball back rather than them recycling, a man up. So yeah, it's definitely, it'll be interesting to see if any of that does occur. Like obviously the coaches or managers, if anybody does tune into this, watch
I
us.
know, and it's funny we're talking about this as if it's a 15v14 game.
Oh no,
already. Look, who's
the odds-on favourite to get the lead?
Spend 40 minutes on talking about 15v14 and 60-minute segment here, but no, look, some of the coaches might call us out here and say, what are we talking about? Why would you let somebody in for a score? But sometimes you just need to get the ball back as opposed to maybe defending the lead at certain stages of the game.
And Cahair, like in terms of the personnel for this weekend, Subi has talked there about who will or will not maybe be available for Kerry. We saw at the weekend there, and we've spoken so much about Armagh's strength and depth and how it really doesn't matter who comes in or out or whatever. And we saw Ross McQuillan coming in at yesterday and brilliant, you know what I mean, again. But maybe we didn't legislate for the goalkeeping side of things, and again that's not necessarily a criticism of Ethan Rafferty, because it's very difficult to be thrown into a game of that magnitude whenever you've played one championship game against Fermanagh,
a comfortable game for a long time.
But going to Killarney, if he's not available, I don't know what the situation. You spoke to Kieran McGeeney after the game yesterday, and he mentioned Blaine Hughes. Andrew Murnan didn't play either.
Certainly the way McGeeney was talking, like it wasn't a case of Blaine Hughes will not be available this weekend. He sort of intimated that they could have maybe risked him if it was a knockout game. But I think the way he put it didn't feel that putting 30 kickouts on him was appropriate, just with the injury they had. So but it was the fact that he wasn't wearing 16 either. Shea McGill was wearing 16, and he didn't take any active part in the warm up or anything. So that says to me, it's certainly touch and go for him.
That to me, that's not advantage Kerry, just because like it's, if you're talking about number 1 and number 16, Armagh probably the best pair in the country. Because there's not as much drop off as others that we've seen with Kerry, I suppose. The opposite side, for me there's a huge drop off. But the fact that Blaine wasn't warming up, it just allows for Kerry to prepare for solely Ethan now, I think.
Or does it not work the other way though, that it kind of puts them in a bit of a flux now this week?
For me, if Blaine was on the bench yesterday and he was actively warming up with him, look, Starr and O'Connor could be thinking, there's Blaine's going to play, maybe after Ethan's mistake. But the fact that he wasn't stripped, I just think it means that they could probably just prepare for Ethan. And me watching, the finish to yesterday's game and Ethan's reaction on the floor, and I hope he gets another opportunity, because it was never sustainable to hit the heights of the semi-final against Tyrone last year in Clonus. Kerry obviously picked apart the kick out last year in Croke Park in the quarter-final, and then obviously yesterday, look, bar maybe 2 or 3 kick outs yesterday, up until maybe 69 minutes and 58
58
seconds on the
seconds.
clock. He was having, like, for me, he was having a decent game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was so composed above his head as well. He was getting involved up the field. A couple of kickouts went astray. Every goalkeeper makes a mistake. I would love to see Ethan in goals in Killarney next week.
And it's the fact that, as you say, it's the Kerry game last year. Like, in some ways, if he can get his head right, it's perfect. Because of the Kerry game last year, it's like, you know, that's as much as last week. That's the one he would want to redeem.
Yeah.
As well. Even though, like, I go back to that game a lot, and I've watched that game a lot, and you'll know this better than me, but obviously the blame falls on Ethan because he's the goalkeeper. He's the man kicking the ball out. But just the way that Armagh were going about their setup and kickouts last year, it went so well all year until it didn't. But when it didn't, it felt like the team didn't know how to respond. The players out the field didn't know how to position themselves to get the team out of this lock. It felt like they never got into a setup to help Ethan either. And I thought he took
the thing that would have been, you know, throwing at the players after the game. This is not on Ethan. This is as much on the outfield players to make life, once the ball leaves his tee, you know where it's going. And then obviously the piggery comment was thrown about earlier in the league and all. For me this year, I just think Armagh's has been more expansive off the tee. Both keepers, I think they're less predictable. I think they went for a profile of player who maybe lower centre gravity, more pacier players. I think Killarney might suit maybe that sort of line 2 kick out, maybe the spinal, as opposed to last year we were forced to maybe go to the box, the sides that too predictable, and Kerry had all their big men waiting on us. So I just think they've developed, and that's what I mean in terms of their restarts. When we spoke about Star earlier, you know, they have developed, they have evolved, and from what I've seen in the league in the early rounds of the championship this year, that's probably where they've evolved most, I think, is the restarts. I would just, again, to echo my point, I would just love to see Ethan, you know, right the wrong of yesterday, and obviously a chance to maybe remove that scar tissue from the quarterfinal last year as well.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about Dublin Donegal.
If you like. Sort of feel bad. We better just for like 2 minutes give Louth some credit, would we?
Oh, here, absolutely, yeah. Well, I mean, this is the fast moving
listeners,
the fast moving world of Gaelic football. Like, you know, yesterday's game becomes forgotten when the draw is made, nearly, doesn't it? Like, but Louth, as you said, they're sitting waiting in the quarter final now. Another like huge step on their trajectory. You wrote about it today, like, you know, from playing in Division 4 5 years ago.
2021,
yeah,
5 years ago.
Crazy
playing
story.
Antrim in the first league game in Hagerstown and getting beat by Ryan Murray point injury time to Antrim to come to now. And the point being that to come to this stage and beat Armagh in a serious championship game, but to do it with the luxury of Kieran Byrne off the bench, and Tommy Durnan off the bench, and Conor Early off the bench, Tag McDonald off the bench, Peter Lynch not there, Owen Callahan not there. Like, you know, that for me, that is a phenomenal rate of growth for a squad, for a team. And like Gavin Devlin said afterwards yesterday, he was asked, and you know, you don't beat Armagh in Dublin in 12 months or 24 months. It takes time, and it just takes players committing every night to, because, you know, as he said, like, Armagh are doing the same work. They're working as hard. You just have to work as hard as them and harder to catch up. But if you do it and you're well enough coached, which they are, then you give yourself a chance. And they've been sort of, I would say, fortunate in that, you know, when Mickey and Gavin Devlin went in there initially, they were in Division 4 and they shouldn't have been, probably. And that allowed them to make early progress. So they got Division 4 promotion, then they got Division 3 promotion, and then they were an hour away from Division 2 promotion in their third year, and then they won Leinster, and now they've had this, and I think every year they've had a wee growth that the players can see and can feel, and that has allowed them to keep the thing together and really building, and just culminated. Well, they'll hope it didn't culminate in yesterday. They'll hope that there's more to come, and I would think that, you know, the teams looking at the lineup on the other side of the quarterfinals, like, are Louth, don't
Again,
know.
we're talking about Croke Park and stuff here.
We're
like,
talking
when-
about Croke
when you-
Park,
when
but
you
if
go
you,
into Croke-
so everybody's looking at that and saying, right, Galway's probably the team they don't want to play, but who's the next team that you don't want to play after that? Is it Louth or is it Tyrone?
But I think we're guilty of throwing Louth almost into that stratosphere with Monaghan. You know, we just they're almost. You look at the draw. Would you mind playing Monaghan? Probably not. But you just keep
But yet,
grinding away.
it's always
Just keep grinding away. Like
Yeah.
I spoke
Massive one
about
for
them.
them
I
too.
was huge advocates up in here when I was here 2 weeks ago. My old mate Conor McCarthy stepped up. He did. He's flying. Even Dorn McCurry stepped up there. I gave him a.
so you did, yeah.
Nine
that's
people's
right.
going to start tuning in here, thinking
Every
what I'm
time they
talking
play,
about here.
every time they play Mayo, like.
But no,
McCurry's playing.
But even I think we could be guilty of maybe throwing
overlooking sometimes the way
maybe the
that
quality. Just but like see I was obviously down in Croke Park for the Louth and Dublin game, and I was watching the game yesterday obviously closely, and the two performances Sam Mulroy, and I know the likes of Downey etc are going to get the headlines because of the dummy solos and the double dummy solo.
Yeah.
But I've seen another side too, and this is probably just me because I'm obviously on the outside now, and I'm like when I'm in that bubble, you only really study these teams and these players when you're up
from
against
a
them.
different perspective.
So what I've seen from Sam Mulroy the last 2 weeks has been unbelievable. Like if you were to look, if you didn't watch any Gaelic at the weekend, and you come out of the last 2 weekends, and Sam Mulroy kicked, I think it was 4 points against Dublin, 2.3, and yesterday again, I know he got the. Do you give him the 1-4 or do you give him the 4 points? I don't think it's an own goal, is it? So
no,
it didn't touch it. Who else?
it's a samurai goal.
is this Sam Mulroy goal, right?
It's a
Okay.
samurai goal.
Even though well claim that. Right. Well, anyway, so like again, similar enough. He kicked the 2.3, and 4 points, I think, with 1-4, whatever. But even that 2.3 that he won yesterday, that's where I'm going with my point here. And we want going all the way around. Like he had no right to win that ball. Him and Jason Duffy had actually looked like he was big favourite for that ball, and Sam got his body in front, got the leg wrapped around him, picked it up off the ground. No, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. The effort was there, and I thought it was a harsh free at the time, but that play just summed up what he's delivered in the last 2 games for Louth. Like
Goal line clearance, do you?
I think he'd the goal line clearance. He scored a 2-pointer, and he may have caught a kick out underneath the stand.
He did.
Didn't he?
He did.
And close, like within maybe 3 or 4 plays, and like what punishment he took in Croke Park the other week as well was like the turnovers, the contacts he takes, and he just doesn't slow down. He's been up in my estimation so much. Just from the outside, I thought Sam would have been. He's obviously a huge leader.
I remember talking to people from like 3 or 4 years ago, and he was kind of becoming a name then. And they would have said, he's a free
Good
taker.
free taker.
You know, like
that's what I mean. A dead ball specialist. Like,
but I'm the
But that
same
was
as you.
it. People would have said that was all he was.
But any time I've seen him in the last couple of years, I always go.
but he went through a phase of maybe hitting 7, 8, 9 points.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 years ago, and because that's sort of dipped at the moment. Even with the 2.3, it's. But I just watched him play our cam there, and he. Now you know why he's maybe not kicking the 9 or 10 points. It's because the how much energy he is
expanding
around that pitch, and the amount of turnovers, the tackles. He is,
and that to me, that's a far greater sign or a far greater contribution and a way of leadership.
Yeah.
Than if you just looked at bare numbers, you would say Sam Mulroy has actually depreciated. But if you then watch what he's doing, as you say, he's obviously playing much deeper, and he's playing a very different game now, and he's just linking it all.
For me, at the minute, look at recency bias and all this aside, but I'm trying to think. He's in that Seanie O'Shea ilk where he's like, you know, where Seanie O'Shea was almost accused of being too honest.
Yeah,
like you look at him maybe 30 minutes in the game and he's absolutely out on his feet. Sam is up there. I'd say at the minute he's probably one of the most complete. I wouldn't even call it forward. Most complete players in the game right now, and I'll be keeping a close eye on him over the next couple of weeks because what he delivered in the last 2 games has been unbelievable.
Yeah. Dublin got back to winning ways against Cavan on yesterday. Donegal was losing to Cork and Ballybuffet was probably the shock, I suppose. Like a lot of ribbon about pundits' picks and stuff over the weekend and how much people were anticipating that Donegal might win by. Cork upset the apple cart a bit, but now so they're waiting in the quarterfinals. But Donegal have to go to, well, we assumed it would be Croke Park, but it might not be. I guess that's going to be one of the big talking points. Ger Brennan said after the match yesterday that if Dublin got a home draw, he would love it to be in Parnell Park, and
should be.
You can absolutely see why. Again, you were in a scheme and you can see like the Dubs are not.
And it adds to the game.
Yeah,
I could think.
But from their point of view,
absolutely. From a Dublin perspective and a home perspective, it makes sense for Dublin. From a neutral perspective and an attractiveness perspective for the game and to look at and to watch, Parnell Park makes far more sense. Like there's nothing there, as brilliant as it is, there's almost nowhere worse to watch football than Croke Park with 10,000 people in it or 15,000 people in it, because it sucks the life out of the game.
Well, I as I said, I've done the game a couple of weeks ago against Louth, and like the Dubs were outnumbered. You know what I mean? You take the hill out of it.
Yeah,
it'd been 3-1 Louth, in the Hogan and the Cusack, but I just think like where Dublin are, I think they need to go. I don't think it's probably a good draw for them in that if they avoided the Donegal or Armagh, Kerry, whatever it was, to the latter stages, I think they could be tucked to the absolute cleaners just where they're at in Croke Park and maybe a quarter-final, semi-final. I think it's a good test for them, especially with Donegal coming off the loss. Donegal won't be able to use their athleticism and their physicality that they're able to walk over a lot of teams with in Parnell, you'd imagine.
Well, you think they'd be letting the grass grow all week, like?
Yeah, bringing the pitch in any further, but no, I think it's a good draw. I think we'll get a. I wasn't overly impressed with Dublin and Croke Park 2 weeks ago, to be honest. I hadn't seen the game at the weekend, but I think the pleasing thing was the form of Con.
That name.
Yeah, Lee Gannon was back.
No Bugler.
Bugler.
No Bugler. I know Bugler.
He was out.
And Costello went off injured as well. And that, like, if there's no Bugler and there's no Costello, those are 2 massive losses for them. And their ability to compete with Donegal would rest a lot on. I don't think it looked great for Costello in terms of a 6 or 7 day turnaround.
And he had kicked 26 points in 3 games going into the weekend.
Yeah,
I don't think Bugler was on the.
Bugler wasn't on the squad at all.
It's huge then.
Before, those are massive losses for them. I'm just so conscious now of how often I say massive. I actually sound like
massive. Sometimes. It's funny because you're talking about.
You were mocking me last week, and now it's sort of stuck in my head every time I say it, and I can nearly hear myself doing it. But
I'll whack at you every time you do it.
That will not help. Look, Dublin in trouble. Dublin in trouble in terms of this game, and they're in trouble generally. And any chance they have relies on being Parnell Park. You say if that game is in Croke Park against that, and now Donegal, by all reports, one of the ills of this thing is we haven't been able to see Donegal and Cork yet because it wasn't televised. I haven't been able to watch the game at all, so you're kind of bluffing on it. I mean, I listened to it on the radio, and they sounded so comfortable at one stage that Paddy McGill and Martin McHugh and Ocean FM were talking about whether Letterkenny needed 2 clubs, 3 clubs and 4 clubs, and
I was listening to it in Highland, like in the first half.
Jesus,
sorry, I know, but Brenton's.
Sorry, Brenton. But sorry, Brenton. I know,
but and I like it was almost like they were lulled into a complete false sense of security by just how comfortable it was for most of the first half that they sleepwalked through the second and were just caught, But like that's not that. Soupy, that can't be a good sign. So much different angles of discussion came out of the Donegal, or sorry, out of the defeat to Down in Ulster. Talk that they'd deliberately, maybe not turned up, etc. All kinds of crap was going around. But like when you see a result like on Saturday, on the back of what happened in Killarney, do you not start to, I don't know, like, do you not start to wonder what is going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I know Jim and the Donegal background team came out after the Down game and said, look, the no way, shape or form did they take Down lightly. I genuinely think they did. I think they'd one eye on the Armagh game, and the reason why I say that is because, like, I've been involved in a lot of big games against Donegal. I have had huge impact in some of them games, but then I've also been taken out of them games by switches that the sideline have made. And I'm talking about the likes of, like, we knew Pat Hebron, the damage that he could do. We're talking about Daniel Guinness, like two of the informed players in Ulster this year. If not, we seen the damage that Caleb Doherty was doing from half forward coming off the league final. And I don't know if it was instructed or the lack of instruction, or maybe the players just weren't carrying it through. Them players weren't being tagged like where we were tagged in the Ulster finals. And that's why I left that game thinking that they definitely overlooked that, because I was watching Hebron get clipping 2 pointers with 7-8 yard space. Daniel Guinness being allowed
to run through.
Gallagher's momentum, we know that he can go both ways. And just how easily that they went through the centre back Donegal defence. And I know they were taken by surprise. They expected the Division 3 team to come up and go round the arc and maybe live off scraps. But you give them one by ball, and then they go down to Killarney, do the done against Kerry, albeit we spoke about it earlier, man up.
But again, I was seeing a similar, a bit of a correlation here, and obviously, like, you take the time in between these games is obviously a massive factor. But like, so much energy went into the Division 1 final, so much focus went into that, and it was almost like the Down. Not that it was an afterthought, but then this one, so much energy went into the game in Killarney.
This one worries me more than the Down game. I think you can always get caught cold, but the fact that they went down to Killarney, it wouldn't have took a huge lot, maybe mentally more, but physically, so that the second game was the second half was on their terms. That week, they would have been on a high. The fact that Cork were such poor travellers and they kept them to 113 in Ballybuffet would be the worrying part for me. Obviously, we haven't seen the game yet. We don't know, but maybe it was just a game that was it.
I just wonder, did they, even listening to Jim McGuinness afterwards, did they overhype the Ballybuffet thing themselves? He was talking about wanting to put on a performance for the Donegal people back in Ballybuffet, back at home. And he was the one that referenced having lost their last 3 championship games at home. And I just wonder, just heard those couple of things and thought, I wonder if they just gone and drained their own energy over emphasising that side of it. I don't know, that's just a pure theory listening to what he had said. But by all reports, the game was very, very slow, very sideways, and they dropped off Cork and allowed Cork to just take the sting out of the game. Whereas, and again, because we haven't seen it, we can't say it for sure, but it sounded, listening to it and reading about it, it sounded a lot like what happened in spells of the All-Ireland final last year, where they allowed that middle sector of the field to just be a dead zone, and they allowed Cork to have it, and they sort of, in probably a different way, in that they thought, look, if we sit in here, Cork aren't going to break us down, which I didn't think they would. But what did Cork kick? 6 2 pointers to none. Yeah, so there's 12-0 on 2 pointers, and that's the game. And we know Cork have 2-point shooters now. There was one that put them in front when the game was level later on, that I saw the replay of, and I would love to know what the 50-metre penalty was for, because I can't understand it when you watch unless it was descent, but it didn't even look like there was time for descent. Didn't see anybody stand in front of the free. Couldn't understand what the 50-metre penalty was for, and Sherlock kicked that 2-pointer over the bar. So, but Cork have the twos in them, and Donegal will be disappointed again, to go back and lose another game, because And you're talking about, had they overlooked it again in the sense of it was very clear within 4 minutes of the Kerry game, they had a goal and a 2-pointer, neither of which they scored in the All-Ireland final last year, and they won that 5-1 on 2-pointers down in Killarney, and then to lose this 6-0. I don't know, did they not go for them in the first half? Did they miss them, or did they just not feel that they needed them to beat Cork? You know, did they not place the same emphasis on it? But look, it's one of those things.
We don't know.
We're sitting here. I know you're probably listening, thinking, "Why do you not know it's your job?" But it's very hard. I'd love to watch that game and get a proper.
Great. Did you see the flyer going around from? It was one of these AI jobs, but somebody from one of the clubs in Donegal, I can't remember who it was. You know, if you're at the match, you know, can you, some kind of arrangement? Can you FaceTime it so that we can beam it on the screen in the clubhouse or whatever, and there's pints on offer, and it was the most Donegal thing I've ever seen. So that's what we're as a country we're being driven to. You know,
pints,
aye, pints and
FaceTime,
watching football. I think that's going to wrap us up today, guys.
You done?
That's me done.
Very quiet today.
Time to go. I mean, I'm very quiet today. I try never get a word in edgeways anyway.
What do you think of Derry on Saturday night? Just you there?
I was there, yeah. It was. They just ran out of gas a bit. Meath were the better team. As you wrote in your preview, there was a bit of a desperation era about the whole thing. James Sargent being thrown in.
He looked good, didn't he?
Was a red herring, you know.
Yeah.
And Meath didn't really know couldn't really get a handle on him in the first half, but once, you know, he barely got a kick in the second half, and from there Meath just dominated really. But yeah, you just wonder where Derry go from here. And
do you think Paddy McBurdy went in too hard? Said it's the end of the road.
I was at the match. Did he say that? I didn't see that yet.
I thought it was harsh. He said
for the team or for
Derry.
certain players.
Just Derry. Just see, obviously we went through the 22, 23, 24 spell. They picked up the 2 Ulsters, and basically says that he didn't know where they would go. And I thought it was a bit harsh. I don't feel like the profile of player, like many of them players will be in their 30s.
Brendan Rodgers.
There's not a lot that I could think of.
Ben Rodgers in his 30s.
The glass is nearly there, isn't he? Like he must be 28, 29 now.
There's a lot of them around 27, 28, 29.
There are Conor Doherty. There are a lot of them in that bracket yet, 28, 29. Gareth McKinless maybe in his 30s now as well. Gareth's probably in his 30s. But
still relatively young in terms of the way we see the...
They are, but I think we'll probably see them all back next year. If certainly not the vast majority of them, but it's sort of where they go from here, because it just feels like a team that needs a fresh injection, which we talked at length about here a couple of weeks ago, about needing to build a wee bit of depth that they haven't had, and to sort of try and put more pressure on the established players as well in terms of their positions. But I thought the better side won as well.
The better side won. I just thought Derry, like obviously they were flat against Armagh. I think if yesterday's game, or the game against me, on Saturday, was maybe the first round game, it would have been something to build on. I thought they showed glimpses of that quality that they had, but for me, they're very wasteful. Their efficiency level just isn't a top 6 or 8 team at the moment.
I was standing in the terrace, and there was times in the second half I was thinking, like, there were opportunities there for. I've one in mind where, there was a goal chance there if Ethan Doherty had just gone off the shoulder and taken the defender away towards the net, and he didn't make the run at all. He stood there, and then I thought, do you know what? They spent most of the night without the ball. They were gassed. I think they spent most of the night chasing it, because the kickouts just went again. Meath are so good at the tap down, and they were so much bigger than Derry. They were able to dominate, and then I'll not go there, but just the fact that Derry's kickouts hang that second or two longer in the air. Meath's are flatter and lower and more aim. Meath were going to dominate those kickouts on both sides, and that was the game really. And you just look, it's a totally different game if you have possession. If Derry had more possession, what's the point of saying that? Almost, it's obvious if you had more possession, you had a better chance of winning. But it just felt like that was the whole game for them, because they expended so much energy chasing the ball and trying to stop Meath, and trying to get a hand on Conlon, who's gone from nowhere, not even been in the team, to now friggin' all-star
for all their sins.
Yeah.
Like this wee tiny guy, and he's a magician.
He's
like
a
he's
magician.
absolutely brilliant. Like
And look, I thought actually the kind of the point where it really turned back against Derry was where they'd obviously, Gareth McKinley's been on him, done pretty well in the first half, then came out when he came back on for the black yard, and I thought he was driving the thing for Derry for those 15 minutes, and then obviously Baker was struggling, and they took him off and they put Gareth back in on Conlon again to try and
the energy just
to
went
try
out.
and quell Conlon,
Yeah.
but it took the energy out of Derry's running game. It took Gareth out of what he'd been doing really well, and I thought that was kind of the moment where it flipped back against them. I just thought they were getting a wee run on at that stage, and they were starting to bring a bit of energy to the running game, and they lost it after that. But no, look, better team won.
Yeah. All right, folks, that's going to do us for this week. Thanks very much to Soupy for coming in, and to Cahair, as always. Thanks very much to our sponsors, Find Insurance NI, your local commercial insurance broker. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you get this podcast, and we will be back for more next week.